Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories podcast. I'm your host, John DeLynn. It is April 14th, 2021, and today I am super excited to have back in studio Shannon Flynn. Many of you know the story of bomber and forger Mark Hofmann. It was recently covered in the Netflix three-part documentary series called Among the Mormons, and many would say kind of the star of that documentary was Shannon Flynn. Shannon Flynn was, I would say, he knew Mark Hofmann. I'd say he was business associates with Mark Hofmann. And I would say on some level, he was a friend of Mark Hofmann, although we'll let him speak for himself. But yesterday we did a good 4 hours with him and focusing mostly on honoring and remembering a mutual friend, colleague, associate, which was Lyn Jacobs. Today, we are just going to dig into Shannon's life, and mostly we're going to spend some time just remembering and reflecting on Shannon's memories and reflections of bomber and forger Mark Hofmann and his involvement. So we're going to just jump to the questions because there's so many. So Shannon Flynn, welcome back to Mormon Stories.
Thank you for having me back. It's actually April 14th.
What did I say?
April 12th.
April 14th.
Yeah,
Thank
April
you.
14th,
Thank you.
21.
We want accuracy in this. Okay, Shannon, really quickly, let's start just with a very brief background. Tell us, just spend a minute kind of telling us where you were born, where you were raised, and what got you into Mormon history and Mormon documents.
Sure. I was born and raised here in Salt Lake City. Out on the we moved out to where my parents lived all the time in 1961. So from then on, it was out in Taylorsville. Went to elementary school, junior high out there, and then took a bus and got to go to Cottonwood High School and had a great experience there. It was a tremendous school for me and what I wanted in those days. Went on a mission to Brazil, 77 to 79. And while I was there, I began to really take an interest in LDS church history and doctrine, carried books with me. And then when I came home, I continued that interest. In 1983, approximately, I met my wife, Robin, and she lived in the Rose Park area, and it was through her that I met Lyn Jacobs. And then it was through Lyn Jacobs that I met Mark Hofmann. And so it was at that time that it went from just a real interest to really do a lot with it, collecting, reading, all that sort of stuff. And so that was kind of my path.
Okay. Talk just quickly about kind of your upbringing as it relates to what type of faith, traditional Mormon faith or not. Did you serve a mission? And prior to meeting Lyn Jacobs and Mark Hofmann, kind of how aware were you of kind of difficult Mormon history, problematic Mormon history, truth claims kind of stuff? How educated were you about the types of things Mark would end up creating forgeries about?
Well, as I said, I took up that interest a lot while I was on a mission. And then as time went on in 82, 83, 84, then I became very aware of the depth and I'm trying to think of the right words. I didn't look at it as this is all problems and I'm leaving. I have never, ever had the idea that I'm going to leave the church, ever. Not till today, April 14th, 2021. Mm-hmm. I still do not do that. I'm active in the church and always have been. Now, I've been treated badly by the church and still am. And so that is just some of the things that I've had to learn how to live with. And during the Hofmann, just after the Hofmann bombings, I went to the church history department, which I was very used to going to. They'd put up a security screen, and they wouldn't let me in. And so they just had me sit, and that security screen had only been up maybe a month, if that. They had a church security guy come down, and he told me in short terms that I would not be allowed in and that I had been declared a persona non grata. I am still that today.
I'm sorry about that.
If I go to the church, square, I cannot go anywhere that passes a security. I'm on their security thing. A red light goes off, a sound goes off. Security comes and wants to know why I'm there. I never really frequented that thing, though in the early 90s, I tried several times and was turned down by general authorities twice in those times. And then I just forgot about it. And then 5 or 6 years ago, I went to meet somebody, close friend, that works in, or did work in the missionary department, an ill-field representative, and he said, come and we'll go in and you can meet people there, the general authority and all that. I thought, that's great. Now, I didn't say anything to him, but I thought, let's see if the elephant has forgotten. Man, the elephant has not forgotten. They had me not pinned, but kind of pinned against a wall. And then my friend came down with like 2 minutes and he said, I've got a call. What is going on? What's the matter? And I said, look, let's just get the hell out of here. Let's just walk out of the building because this is not good and it's not going to get better. So that's still my situation. If sorry. I can go and hold my temple recommend as my ID, and they'll still kick me out.
I'm sorry.
So,
before you met with Mark, let's just say some of the issues that really face Mormons today, Joseph Smith's polygamy, the polyandry, the Joseph Smith's use of a peepstone in a hat, the Mormon Mason temple connection, the Book of Abraham problems, Book of Mormon historicity, all these sorts of things that would plague a Mormon today. Would you have been aware of all those types of issues prior to meeting Mark, prior to kind of 1983? Were those issues that you knew about and had thought about, or not really?
Well, yes, and then no. Yes and yes. I'm aware of I was aware of all that stuff. No, because I have spent the last 36 years continuing to study. My library at home is massive. I did a count one day of all the stuff I have read. I've got pictures of it's like the pictures behind you, except there's over 4,000 volumes. And this isn't a movie. I've read them all. So, knew a fair amount of it then, but not near what I have now. So, I was still in my learning. Now, I was trying to be in business by myself, but then in 1990, I went back to school at the University of Utah to finish my degree. And when I had started originally, I was in sciences. By that time, I'd completely changed. And I got my degree. I've got a Bachelor of Art degree in history at the University of Utah. And one of my favorite teachers there was Davis Bitton. So I was full into that. And now, I've never gotten a master's or a PhD, but I've read as much as anybody with a PhD. So, I'm sorry, I don't know quite how to answer that.
So had you had any crisis of faith, any significant doubts in the church's truth claims, in the historicity of the Book of Mormon, in this being God's one true church, that sort of thing, had you had any significant doubts or questions about that, sort of a faith crisis prior to meeting Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But when I say, it depends on what your definition of a crisis, or a faith doubt. I believe that everybody that is any sort of a historian. I believe that Richard Bushman has had a faith doubt.
Right.
I believe that any name I can, Terrell Givens has had it. Everybody, it goes through your head. You have times. You hit parts that is news to you.
Sure.
4 major, phases of the first vision. That's new. You have to go through that and understand that. And as a result, I don't believe the way I did when I was 19.
And we'll come back to that. But when you started working with Mark and getting to know Mark, I guess what I would ask, were you a believer in Mormonism and in the truthfulness of the church? And, kind of that it was led by prophets and the Book of Mormon was a historical ancient record, that sort of thing.
Well, go to it all the time. Yes. Yes.
Did you believe it?
Well, it depends on what do you mean by do I believe it? Yes.
I'm saying back then. I guess let's just say there's 2 models. One is like, oh, I don't believe this is really the true church, and I think it's been fooling people, or I no longer believe it, but I'll stay in it as a social Mormon. Let's just say that's one possibility. And then another possibility is, oh, I still believe the church is true. I still believe in God and Jesus. The Joseph Smith was a prophet, and the Book of Mormon is scripture, but I have maybe a less traditional view. Let's just say those are 2 options. Do either of those resonate with you, or something in the middle in terms of how you were when you met Mark?
Well, yeah, I things were going on, and I was learning stuff that were new and very different. But what I never was la la la, shut up. I don't want to hear what you're saying. I always wanted to hear what you had to say. But that meant that there was times that a particular thing, how many wives Joseph Smith had in their various ages. Oh, there was sometimes it was years. I had to work through that.
Okay.
I had to,
Maybe let me
that's
ask
not
you this.
what I believed. I'm still go, but how do I understand that? How do I make that fit? And, yeah.
Maybe I'll ask one slightly different way. How would you describe your beliefs back in 1983? What did you believe?
Learning like crazy.
But like God, Jesus, atonement, Joseph Smith, Book of Mormon, are you saying you had suspended your beliefs in those things?
No.
So
No.
What would you have?
But I never had it all happen at once. It was this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece. Work through this piece, still got these pieces.
So it was a work in progress.
Yeah.
But you weren't like, I don't believe this anymore, or this church is a fraud, or this church isn't true. No. You weren't in that mindset.
No.
You maintained significant Mormon belief.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So did you have any dealings in documents, books? Were you in that business prior to meeting Mark? And if so, what were you doing in the document history business prior to meeting Mark?
I was prior to Mark, but it was just because of Lynn, because I knew Lynn first. So I was with Lyn Jacobs when we went to the Deseret Book, which back in those days had a rare department downstairs. And I started to get the first, this is way cool. This is, I got the disease of collecting. And it doesn't matter what coins, cars, fishing bowls, art, whatever you go nuts about, I was going nuts.
You were buying.
The first thing I ever bought was a pamphlet, 3rd edition, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was in a nice little plastic thing, about that big, and it was $10 or $15. And I bought that and took it home. Whoa, this is so good. And it was just going to be the first of what can I get next. And I have maintained a fixation with B.H. Roberts. In fact, just bought some more stuff yesterday, so still do. But I was standing there with Lyn Jacobs. He was the one that said, here, let's go downstairs, right there, look through this stuff. And so I was learning from him.
So you were learning stuff and acquiring stuff. Were you actually buying and selling, sort of trying to also just maybe make a living off of the ability to buy and sell, or were you mostly interested in acquiring it?
Oh, initially it was just buying.
So up until Mark, you were just buying.
Oh, yeah.
You weren't trying to sell and make profits on stuff that you remember?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. So tell us your first, and by the way, listeners, check out the Lyn Jacobs episode to hear all about Lyn. We're not going to recover what we covered for 4 hours yesterday, but Lyn Jacobs is a very important part of this whole story. Tell us about meeting Mark for the first time and what led to you kind of becoming a friend and partner with Mark.
I don't remember the event. I was with Lynn, and we were at one of the bookstores, Sam Weller, Deseret Book. I'm sure there's others, but so long ago I don't remember the exact one. And it was just, hello and how are you? And, now by that time I had been around Lynn long enough that I realized that that's a big collector and finder.
You knew he was a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe there are several forgeries that he had released that weren't known to be forgeries prior to 1983. Yeah. So there would have been. So can you talk about kind of each one of those documents that if you had known about them, and what your reactions to them were at the time? Does that make sense?
Sure. They're really interesting. The end. I don't have any. So
like the Anton manuscript, did you process that about what it might have meant for the church or not? Or did it have any significance or meaning?
Well, yeah. I mean, separate from Mark. I mean, just, talking about it with Lynn, but nothing bad. I never, oh no, this is terrible. No. I just thought that was really interesting.
The Anton transcript.
Yeah, and the Joseph Smith III blessing and whatever it was before I, had any contact with Mark. And after I met him, I don't know how long ago, but it had to have been months. But see, that I don't know. 4 months, 8 months, I don't know. From when I first met him and then really was kind of talking with him. But I can tell you that I never talked to him about anything of a forgery nature. I never said, that seems strange, or what about that? Or I just assumed that it was interesting and a miracle to find it. That sort of thing.
Right. When these letters start coming out, the Anton transcript, the Joseph Smith III letter, the Bullock letter to Brigham Young, the Lucy Mack Smith letter, and then, of course, the Josiah Stoll letter, how did any of them, like, number one, did any of them cause you to kind of, whoa, that really kind of challenges my testimony or my faith? Or did you see any of them as potentially threatening to the church as they were coming out? And how were you feeling about kind of this moment in time where these documents seem to be appearing, all talking about issues that really struck potentially to the core of the church's truth claims? Does that make sense? Or did you not think of it that way?
I never thought of it that way.
You didn't?
In fact, yeah. In fact, the Bullock letter you just said, I don't know what it is.
I think it was basically Bullock chastising Brigham Young for destroying the Joseph Smith III blessing or letter, basically implying that Brigham Young would have had evidence destroyed that would have challenged his authority.
Cool. I've never heard of it.
To this day?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Josiah Stoll, never heard of it. Now I know about it,
But at the
that
time,
I never heard of that.
you hadn't heard of his early forgeries.
Those two out of your list, one I still don't know until right now, and then the Josiah Stoll, I only heard about that after the bombings.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
But you did hear about the Anthon transcripts.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Anthon. Well, the ones that come to my mind beforehand, the big ones, Anthon, Joseph Smith III, the Lucy Mack Smith that Brent Ashworth bought. Knew about that because, of course, Brent loves the publicity. See, I'm trying to think.
No, that's fine. That gives us
That's all that kind of comes to me.
Okay. So tell us how you ended up, would you say you were friends with Mark? And tell us how you ended up becoming sort of a business colleague or collaborator with Mark. And then tell us what your relationship was and what types of projects you worked on with Mark.
Well, we became friends, and so we did things socially. If you listen to the thing yesterday, you'll find out more about that. But my wife and I would go to their house. I went to his house in Sandy with Lynn once, and I can't even remember. I didn't have anything to do with it. Lynn didn't have a car, so I drove him a lot. So he said, we need to go to Mark's.
So you're saying you went to Mark's only one time?
No, his Sandy house.
Oh, his Sandy house. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
is that where he had the basement or?
No,
Okay.
That's the first house he bought.
Okay.
And it was 94 South and something.
Okay.
I can find his address, whatever. So I did go to that one once, but we were only there a few minutes. But then, so the only times that I went to his house was his house on Murray Avenue.
And that's in like Mill Creek area, Holiday Mill Creek area?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to give the exact place.
That's fine.
Because people go crazy.
Yeah.
But it's like 33rd South and 23rd East.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, that, of course, is the house he grew up in.
Right.
And then he bought it from his parents. So, so he spent a lot of his life. So all the time you hear about the secret room and stuff, that was his room when he was a teenager.
Oh, okay.
So
That became his office.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever go into that office?
Never did.
Never once.
Never once.
How many times do you think you visited that house? Do you even have a way, like once, 5, a dozen?
No. Let me give, because there's lots of things I've done that right now I can't give exacts. So let me set the outsides.
Right.
No way. And it's just
Yeah, somewhere in the middle.
more than 8, less than 15.
Okay.
8, 9, 10.
And that's
7.
over about a 2-year period from 1983 to 1985 sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But never to his basement?
Never went downstairs.
Okay.
Now, I knew that it was down there because it came up with Dory saying something, but I never went in the basement. So it wasn't, I've been in the whole house except the secret room.
Right.
I just never went downstairs. Just never had a reason to.
Let's repeat the little story that was told yesterday, because there was a point where the downstairs office was mentioned. Do you want to just retell that story really quick? I think you were there. Was it Mark saying, don't go down there, or I hate it when she goes down there, or he told her never to go down there?
Oh, yeah. That was the writers talking about that. And he was saying something to her and told her never go in that room. And then she said, I don't know if this is in the movie. It may be in the movie, too.
Yeah.
And it is in the movie, because there's a little fake thing of her vacuuming. And she said, that's great. I don't have to clean that room.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But, so, I have, since the movie, seen the crime scene picture of it. Mm-hmm. So that's the first time I've ever seen inside what it looks.
Yeah.
But I guess the way they have that in the movie, that he's doing some of his forgery is doing the electrolysis thing, and that's news to me.
Okay. And I hear you saying that at no point ever in any of your conversations with Mark did you ever discuss the topic of possible forgeries, or even just using the word forgery in your communications with Mark. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. I never heard him say that or even given a hint that there's something like that.
And you never even, did you ever wonder that? Did you ever wonder? You never, the forgery thought in all your time with Mark never even sort of.
Never came up.
To you?
Right.
Okay.
Because, see, everything that he sold was verified.
Right.
And so how would the anthem transcript, what did the church do specifically? I don't know that one. Joseph Smith III, I do know a little bit about that one, because the LDS church, I don't know how much effort they put into that one. Some, I think, on the handwriting on the outside and the handwriting, and I think it was Dean Jesse that, went through that, but I don't think they paid any physical stuff. But then when it got transferred to the, okay, sorry everybody, I'm not really great at all the current terms.
That's okay.
So I'm not a jerk, I just don't spend a lot of time.
Don't worry.
So I won't go through Reorganized Church, now called
Community of Christ. Yeah.
Organized Church.
Yeah.
They paid well-known people. And so I thought, who's going to spend? Sure, they're going to test it. But when they get a good, you're done.
Right.
Now, the Lucy Mack, what did Brent Ashworth do with that one? I don't know. I'm sure stuff, but Salamander, man, Steve Christensen sent that back to, you can tell I got a real problem this way.
He had it authenticated.
The guy, the world famous, the guy that found the Hitler diary forgeries for authentication. Who am I going to have anything to say against that? So people say to me, what's the matter with you? Why didn't you think that? Everyone was tested.
By wealthy organizations that had a strong interest to know whether these documents are legitimate.
Exactly.
And if the world's top corporations, churches, and or experts were authenticating these, who are you to question their authenticity? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. And if you want, I can say something more about that. If you want to.
No, that's good. So how did you become working with him, collaborating with him as a colleague? And then tell us the main projects you were involved in with Mark.
Okay. Let's try to get through this because I can't stay here all day. Eventually we just started doing things together, but there were always I never worked. I was never employed. I didn't have a W-2 or any of that. It was just, do this, I'll pay you, and you'll take care of it. So one of the times, and I'm not going to put these chronologically.
No, it's fine.
I just can't keep track.
Do the best you can.
One time I flew to New York by myself at his behest. He was purchasing something from Schiller and Wapner. And so I flew, and there was a real tight time period. And so I left, I think, on a Friday. And I was gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that. But it was so tight that there was only first class. And so I flew there on American Airlines in a DC-10, whatever, first class. First time I'd ever done that in my life. It was good. Because he just wrote the check. because he said, you got to get there before 5 o'clock on Friday, something like that. And I can't remember what I had, but, well, I can't remember the exact amount, but this is true for several. When I say several, 3 or maybe 4 times. My main point in that trip was to carry cash. And so I would take $15,000, all in hundreds, 18,000, something like that. So I was taking cash to Sherlin Wapner to pay for something.
Books or documents or?
It was books. He never did anything documents with them. They were his, he was their customer.
Mm-hmm. And what types of books again? Were these the?
He was buying from them children's books.
Okay, like we talked about yesterday.
Sorry, having a little water problem here. So think of fantastic children, Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn,
Roald Dahl,
Wizard of Oz.
Right.
And he had amassed one of the best collections in private hands. And so people say, what was Mark doing with that money? That's where a large portion of it was going.
So you would...
So it was a book. So I went with cash, came home with the book.
Okay. So you would...
And then I
think
what he did is said, great, here's $1,500.
And then bring the book back. When you traveled with... How many times do you remember traveling to New York or Boston with Mark? And when you we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I didn't get a clear sense of what you were doing. When you traveled how many times did you travel with Mark to places like Boston or New York? And when you traveled with him there, what was your role then?
Just what I said. 3 or 4.
With him? I meant,
yeah.
I thought those were without him.
No, 3 or 4, and then 1 without.
Okay, because when you're saying you're traveling up with a bunch of money and then bringing home the book.
That was one time.
That was one time.
I was the other times, one of the trips was not carrying money, but the other ones were. And
but with him.
Yeah.
Why did he need you to carry money?
I don't know. Being a jerk.
What do you mean?
Being fancy. I don't know.
So literally he would say, I need you to come to New York with me to carry the cash. Okay. When you were there, I think the movie gives a little, what's wrong? What's
Should
wrong?
I tell you a secret?
Yeah, sure.
You can't keep me all day. Promise me if I give you secrets, some damn secrets.
I won't keep you past 1, I promise.
Nobody's try to send me to jail. The only reason I'm saying this is because the statute of limitations are so far gone. One of the trips I took a gun, Colt Python 357, and had a holster for it and carried it around the whole time.
Why? What was the thought?
I also had $15,000 to $18,000 in my pocket.
So kind of a security person to protect the money.
Yeah.
And was Mark fearful of his life? Was he fearful he'd be robbed, do you think?
Maybe. But, and then you think, okay, lots of questions are coming at me. You're such a jerk. Why did you do it? Why didn't you do this? In 1984, it was not that odd to carry cash. He would go to his bank, get the money, and then give it to me, and I would just have it folded in my pocket. That was the best security, just to have it folded in my pocket. He was doing, I'm not calling Schiller Wapner, wrong, bad people, But Mark got a better deal if he could just pay him cash. So that's why there were no wire transfers, no stuff like that. Because Mark would take it from me, and then we'd go to Cheryl Wapner. He would go in the back. I would stay out front looking at the stuff, talking to somebody there. He'd go in the back for a half an hour, and do whatever it was he was doing with Justin and handing over the cash. That's why it was there. Now, I almost went to jail because that trip coming home, we were on Continental Airlines and the whole system went down. And so people were missing flights all over every airport back east, and we were at LaGuardia. And so I had one suitcase that I was going to check. I was never stupid enough to take it on the plane. I'd just check it, put it on my check bag. We were completely doing everything we could. They had to write a ticket, but there was no check in a bag. It was just take it what you got. That went through X-ray, and I was not caught.
Oh, wow.
And
it was the gun or was the money that was in
the gun.
Okay. And they didn't detect it?
No.
Wow.
And I'd totally forgotten.
Oh, my goodness.
And I sat down and looked at that bag and went, and I sweat the next 30 minutes thinking somebody's going to come pick me up and throw me in jail. For some reason, they didn't see it.
Must have been Heavenly Father. Must have been divine providence. It's a miracle. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is your main role in New York or on these trips was to carry the cash and to carry a gun and to defend or protect Mark. One time. But you weren't there for your expertise, and you weren't there to actually be a front man or be a negotiator or anything like that.
No, just to be a friend.
A friend.
Because all day long, we got a hotel room. We saw a movie once. Terminator was new. I won't go into the bizarre experience there.
Okay.
We would go to dinner with Schiller and Wapner.
Right.
So it was somebody just to be with.
So just to have a companion, kind of. Yeah. So one of the impressions I think the documentary may make is that you guys kind of partied while you were there. Maybe alcohol, maybe drugs, maybe dancing, maybe there were kind of sexual exploits. And I'm not... as faithful Mormons, or at least as people who were perceived as faithful Mormons, what is it you want to say about that, or nothing? You don't have to say anything. I'm just whatever you're comfortable saying, because that is an impression that's made, right?
Well, yeah. Because see, I want to fix one of the problems in the film.
Okay.
Actually, two of the problems in the film right off. Okay, stop. I have to do something right now. Tyler Measom is man amongst men. He killed himself doing this thing. 5 years. It's a miracle it ever was put together, what he went through. And they pulled off, those two, one of the great films of all time. I just heard one day ago that thing is still in the top 5 of Netflix, in the tens of millions. So, and then they did what they had to do to make this thing work. And one of the things to make it work is they had to erase Lynn. I was very upset about that. Then they explained to me why it had to be that way. And then I said, okay, I understand now. Because point number one is this has to be a movie that not me watches, not anybody in Utah watches, the rest of the world. So things happen to make that thing move.
Sure.
So the drinking thing. One of the trips I went with Mark, Lyn Jacobs had come from Boston. He had been telling Mark that he could get him drunk. He said, I can get enough alcohol into you to make you drunk and fall down. And Mark said, no, you can't. And so he went to the restaurant where we were staying because at one point a hostess says, "You are drinking too much. I hope you're not driving." And I said, "I didn't drink." I have to say that. Stuff that Mark and Lynn did, especially Mark, I didn't do. I never drank.
You never drank ever?
Never.
No drinking or drugs? You obeyed the word of wisdom to the...
None of it.
Okay.
Did we go to Terminator? Yes. Did Mark at some point get some cocaine? I have no idea. Did he go to live sex act stuff? I don't know. If he did, I wasn't there. So
Okay.
maybe he did. I don't know.
Okay.
Not while I was there.
You never saw him do that.
I never saw him do that.
And you never participated in that kind of stuff.
But did he do it? I guess.
Right.
But the drinking I did see.
But you didn't drink.
Because when we would go to dinners, and that was one of the nice things about Justin Schiller, best food in my life. It was so good there. He would drink with them. But anyway, this one sat, and it was Lyn Jacobs that said, "Have 2 of these, a double whiskey, a double bourbon, a double vodka," trying to get him drunk. Well, what we didn't realize at the time was Mark was getting drunk, but he was fighting it mentally.
Right.
He was doing the thing. And so, but see, it didn't work in the movie. So they actually edited out me saying Lyn Jacobs, then re-edited with me saying Justin Schiller.
Mm-hmm.
That never happened.
Okay.
Me taking a picture of the Salamander letter, that was where I worked. But Lyn Jacobs came, so they had to re-ramp the whole thing.
They kind of take Lynn out.
So if you look at that, that's real. No, it's not. That's fake.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
But again, remember,
that's just how the sausage gets made.
Tyler, Jared.
The thumbs up, big time. And they're dear friends, and shout out to Tyler and Jared. Love you both.
But that's why.
They did a great job. Okay. And we, there is a lot of speculation, dozens and dozens of messages to me that Mark Hofmann may have been gay, that there are all sorts of mean things said about that. I just want to say we covered that in the Lyn Jacobs episode. If I were to summarize, and you can confirm this, is Lyn Jacobs definitely was gay. What you said, and he died of AIDS. But what you said yesterday was you never saw any indication ever that Mark was gay.
That's correct.
Never.
And you know what stuff I heard about him or thought maybe it was always heterosexual.
Right.
Never said anything to Lynn. Never said to Lynn, "Find me something." Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Yeah. And the only reason we're mentioning that is because Sandra Tanner mentioned to me that the police, during the investigations in '85, kept asking Shannon and kept asking Sandra and Mark and others, I don't know if it was Sandra, but Mark and others, about whether there was some sort of LGBTQ motive in the bombings and in the forgeries and that sort of thing. And so it's not in any way, for any other reason, no prurient reasons to ask these sorts of questions.
Yeah, they were doing it just as in investigation, placing blame, using that to say, you two are gay, so you suck. You see?
Right, to malign them, to make them look bad. Yeah. Okay. Did Mark presented himself to the world as an active, faithful, believing Mormon. There are all these people saying he was a family man, devoted family man. So if you're traveling to New York, seeing an unsavory kind of, sinful Mark Hofmann, knowing that when he comes back to Utah, he's with Dory and he's presenting himself as a faithful Mormon, didn't that, in your mind, call into question his ethics, his honesty, his trustworthiness, knowing that he was kind of living an unsavory, un-Mormon life, double life, so to speak?
Well, yeah. But in life, I've known lots of people like that. I mean, since I was in high school, maybe before, I knew people.
That's part of being a human.
That's part of being a human.
Just have friends that...
Man, there was a kid that lived next door to us that he would bless the sacrament. He was 16, and we knew he was drinking beer his head off the night before.
Right. And that's
So
just
that's
part of
the
being
way-
a Utah Mormon. That's part of being a Utah Mormon, right?
Exactly. That's the way I saw Mark.
Yeah.
That level.
Did Mark ever give you an indication ever that he doubted the church, that he didn't believe in the church, that he was angry at the church, that he was an atheist?
Oh, yeah. He told me probably in 84, maybe 83. Don't hold me on these dates, please.
Around these
doing
times.
the best I can.
Sure.
That he was a totally atheist. Totally atheist. And he told me he had been since he was 14 years old.
Okay, so then that's another extra sort of element of duplicity, that you know that he's not living the Mormon life, but you also know that he's presenting himself as an Orthodox, faithful, believing Mormon, and he's totally an atheist. Did that not cause you alarm to say, is this guy really trustworthy? Is this someone who's on the up and up?
Not really. Not really.
Because that's deception. Isn't that deception, kind of?
Well, sure. But I've known, and I still know people that do that. You know, you hear about that constantly. You know, once in a while, I'll hear about church leaders, bishops, that just got excommunicated. Really, what happened? Oh, he's been having an affair with this woman for the last 6 years. To me, it's like, yeah, that kind of stuff happens everywhere. But that happens to anybody. There's people that have no religious backing at all, that have affairs and stuff behind their spouse's mind.
Right.
That happens in the tens of thousands all the time. So, good or bad? Bad. Great behavior? No. But the same as lots of people, yes.
So those things alone don't make someone like not credible or overall untrustworthy. You can have private beliefs and or even private behaviors and even kind of live a bit of a duplicitous or a very significantly duplicitous life. But that doesn't mean you're a person that just on a macro level has no integrity and is dishonest and is a liar and is untrustworthy.
It's just that what you have to decide as a human person.
But for you still felt like he was...
CEOs of big companies in the United States
Yeah.
are got 2 women going on the side.
Right.
But they're great as the CEO.
Right. Yeah, okay.
That's what humans do.
Go ahead.
Did it ever reach to the point of what Mark, we've found out that he is? Never has. But because now, especially what he said in the parole hearing, that amazed me to this day. I sat there and looked at that and heard him. Well, it could have killed a child or a dog.
Yeah. That wasn't the Mark you
can tell right
knew.
now, my mouth hangs open.
That wasn't the Mark you knew.
No.
Okay.
And I don't know how to account that.
And we'll get to that. One of the most theatrical parts of the documentary was kind of, you guys going in the hot rod, going out to the fields or the desert, blowing up stuff, shooting the Uzi. And then there's a lot of people that want to say, okay, Mark did a bomb. You had a book about bomb making. And I think even someone wrote in that you helped prepare the caps that went on the pipe bombs or something like that. So there's a lot of people that are like, what in the world was the gun toting, the Uzi shooting, the bomb exploding, and the bomb making sort of, what was all that? What was that business? Why were you involved in it? And then how does that not implicate you in what later becomes the bombing? Spend some time talking through all that, if you don't mind.
Well, first of all, let's get what's true and what's not true.
Okay, yeah, please.
Did I buy a book called Anarchist Cookbook at Cosmic Airplane? Yes, I did. So did lots of people They sold lots of those.
Right.
So I'm so different. No, I'm not. Because Anna's cookbook has a whole drug section. Tells you how to make something out of morning glory. LSD. LSD. How you can make it out of, stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Why did you buy that book?
Because it was really interesting. Because of all of those things.
Drugs, bombs.
Everything.
Okay. There's a lot to it.
Huge amount.
So did you buy that book because you were interested in the bomb making part of it?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Never used it. The police picked it up and tried to make a big deal out of it. It wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
Because for a while, I was interested in Soldier of Fortune magazine.
What is that? Tell us what that is.
It's not around anymore. It was a magazine that was supposedly geared towards people that were soldiers of fortune around the world. I don't know.
Yeah. And why were you interested in that? Just because it was fun or interesting?
It's just interesting.
Okay.
But I don't know how many magazines they sold a month. 25,000, 50,000, whatever. So does that mean there's 50,000 murders?
Right.
No.
So what was the bomb making and Uzi shooting about?
The bomb making was nothing. Mark, okay, now I got to tell you. I got to talk fast because, like I said, I can't stay here all day. Mark was the person with the interest in bombs and had been since he was a kid. Before, if you would see him when I knew him, two of his fingers, one of the hands, I can't remember, were kind of injured. Mm-hmm. Because he messed around with firecrackers and the big ones, and he actually made a bomb, and it went off at his elementary school when he was in elementary. Dory could tell. Dory, come on. You can tell us about this part more than I can, because I don't know all the details of that. So it was Mark that had that, and he had an interest, and I knew a guy that lived in Richfield who had relatives that would blow up stumps, and so they just used a stick of dynamite and a fuse, light it, kind of fuse. And so at one time, I got two of those and gave them to Mark. Never saw him again. Mm-hmm. I never built a bomb with him. I did nothing with a pipe. Whoever says that is just making up crap or lying. In the movie, the car, Mark did have that car, racing, spinning in the dirt, made up. Never happened. Totally made up. Mark setting off a bomb. Have no idea.
You never saw Mark set off a bomb? Him. Somebody talked about producing a blast cap in Richfield for Mark.
Just what I just said.
What? Never happened?
No, I just told that.
Oh, okay. Why did you do that? What was that about?
He was interested. I found two and gave them to him.
What do you mean you found two caps, blast caps? What does that mean?
Guess he was reading something.
No. I
did just say the story.
No, yes, thank you. And I want to just explain, why were you creating blast caps, and then why did you give them to Mark?
He was interested. I'll have to tell the story over again.
No.
I have a friend that lived in Richfield. He had relatives that were farmers.
Okay.
They needed to get rid of stumps. So they were able somehow, I don't know how, to go someplace and buy a stick of dynamite and the fuses. That's the
Okay, the stump. I'm sorry, I missed that. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's the fire kind.
And so Mark says, I need blast caps from you?
I would be interested. He heard that I knew somebody, and he said, "Oh, I'd love to get a couple of those." And I said, "Oh, okay, I'll get them. I'll get what I can." And see, at that time I was working at Wasatch Photographic, and the person I knew was a photographer.
Okay.
There was a photographer in Richfield.
Yes.
So, and we were friends for a long time. And so I brought it up, and he said, yeah, I'll talk to one of my relatives and see if I can get a couple of them. And so that's when I was still working, and so I saw him at some point. I either went to Richfield or he came up, but he got two.
What impression did Mark give you as to why he wanted blast caps? What was your understanding for why he wanted them?
No idea. Didn't say.
And you had no idea?
No idea. Never saw him again.
Would these have been the blast caps he used for the 3 bombings?
No.
Why not?
Because they were, you light a match.
Okay.
They're not electric.
Okay. Okay.
And I gave him 2.
Right.
And he had 3.
Right.
And they were all electronic.
Okay. So okay. And just to get right to the heart of the matter, if people want to say, you know, you worked with him to create the bombs, or you were a co-conspirator. I mean, obviously, whether or not that were true, you wouldn't even, you would not want to ever admit that. But what would your statement be? What would your statement be about, just to make it really clear, about ever knowing about Mark creating bombs and, or, you know, helping Mark create bombs? What would you say?
Okay, well, let me help you.
Thank you.
You've probably murdered somebody at some point in the past. I've heard that from somebody. But, you know, I know that even if you did, you would never admit to it. Isn't that true?
Right.
Go ahead. Quit saying that bullshit to me.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't think that. I want to give you a chance to go on the record and say that.
Once again,
Yeah.
there is no such thing. Those 2 caps gave to him, and I can't remember. 84?
Okay.
Sometime?
Yeah.
Never saw him again.
Okay.
I confessed all this to the police.
No, I know. Yeah.
And I mean, I went on for hours with them about this.
Right.
Because they thought they had something.
Yeah.
And guess what? Every FBI, Salt Lake County, Salt Lake City, ATF, especially the ATF guy. That guy sat there. I could go a long time about this one. If there had been anything, they would have found it.
Right.
There was nothing. But did Mark was interested in iron guns? Yes. Did Mark purchase an Uzi? Yes. Did we do the stuff to convert it to full auto? Yes. Did we fire it twice? Yes. Out by Twilla, once on the north side of I-80 and once on the south side. Today, I couldn't tell you. I could drive around and say, I think.
Right. Where? Yeah. It's probably subdivision. It's probably subdivisions now.
So, car shooting it out the window. Another sorry, Tyler and Jared, made up crap.
You shooting something out the window, or
Made up
just
crap.
Yeah. Are you frustrated that it was portrayed that way? Were you frustrated to see it portrayed that way? I've often wondered, what's that like? Someone's got to try and recreate the story because that's kind of part of visual storytelling. So they're going to get it wrong no matter what. But what's it like, number one, to have your life reenacted with actors and sort of dramatized? And then what's it like when it's around something kind of so potentially serious or incriminating? What was that like for you?
Let's talk about that. Yes, it's a problem. Yes, it frustrates the living. I'm going to not. I swear in real life. I'm
That's okay. You can swear. Okay, don't swear.
Because people think I'm a jerk. It bothers me. Always has. And it makes my wife crazy. Mm-hmm. This just sends her off the edge to see me portrayed this way.
So when you watched the documentary, you felt those parts, you felt what?
They don't bother me so much because I understand what we're working with here. Now, in 20 years, I won't be alive then. But say I was, and somebody I'm helping putting together material, and this is going to be part of material someday that people can get the real story. If that person was doing something and it said PhD on it, and that kind of stuff's in it, then I'm going to be really mad.
Okay.
Really. But now let's shift away from that. And this is a movie that is going to be a documentary, but it has to be done in a way that, number one, Netflix is in charge of this.
Yeah.
They're the ones that did final edits on it. And so they had to be in charge of it. And there's some stuff in there.
Yeah.
Me with the drinking, me with the shooting the gun, me with all this stuff, just me, is wrong. But I get what it is. I get what it is.
Got it. I think.
But anyway, to finish off, now I'm here to say those things are wrong.
Right. Okay. Thank you. People really, I think the biggest question marks I've heard are from people saying, what the day before the first two bombings, what were you doing with Mark? How much time did you spend with Mark? When were you with Mark? And what did you know and what didn't you know? I think that's the biggest area of suspicion people have. And I don't think in the documentary it really is clear. And it may be that you don't know or remember. But what can you tell us about everything you remember about what Mark was doing the day before or what you were doing with Mark the day before?
I was doing very little.
But you saw him?
Maybe just talk to him on his phone.
You don't remember ever seeing him face to face the day before?
That day.
No?
No.
Okay.
Because I didn't know what was going on. Specifically, here are my examples. He had to meet Brent Metcalf to give him some money for work that, for money, Brent needed that. I didn't know about that day.
Okay.
I found out just recently, and if you go look with Brent Ashworth, he has a check that shows that Mark went to his house on Friday evening. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware that he was very, sorry, my language is falling apart here.
Take your time.
He had a lot of obligation towards Stephen Christensen because of the McClellan collection. Steve was all over him. At some point, Mark came to my house with Stephen Christensen and got a check from me. It was for $11,000. I can't remember who from. It may have been Deseret Book. Maybe. Don't you love my voice going up and down? It's what you get for having the cancer. The check was made to me. I was supposed to go get that thing cashed, give the money to Mark except for what part was coming to me. No idea. Steve was there. Mark said, you need to endorse that to me right now. I did. And I could see him give that to Steve. Then they left. Was that the 14th? No, because it was late at night. Could have been the 12th or the 11th or the 10th. I don't know. But because of that, I knew Steve was all over him. Getting the $185,000 going back to First International Bank. So, and that had nothing to do with me.
So let's just say the week leading up to the bombings, do you remember spending one-on-one time with Mark, doing anything one-on-one, projects, friendship stuff, hanging out? Let's just say the week leading up to the bombings.
In the 3 months before that, I was around with Mark a lot. I either saw him or talked with him 5 weeks a day.
5 times a day?
No, for a week.
5 times a week. And what types of things were you working with Mark on in those months leading up to the bombings? What types of projects?
I don't know. I can't remember anything specific.
Was it the children's books? Was it Mormon documents?
Could have that been one of the trips to New York? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But which one was I doing the specific thing? I don't remember. I don't know.
I guess what I'm asking is the nature of your collaborations with Mark from a business perspective in the months leading up to the bombing.
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure in that 3 months, in fact, I'm almost sure because I went to Brazil for the month of May of 85. So that would leave June, July, August, September, and then part. And I had stopped working at Wasatch Photographic some. So that was my full-time job for those 4.5 months.
Doing what? Working for Mark?
Not for, but doing things.
Okay.
So one of the things I did is I sold some stuff for him, some stuff to a guy named Todd Axelrod, who had a huge store in Las Vegas, and it was the American Museum,
It's okay.
something,
Yeah.
but it was selling documents really expensive. And he had a store in the biggest, fanciest mall in Las Vegas. The thing's still there, but it was really expensive stuff. Emancipation Proclamation, and huge, gigantic, the people. And he bought 3 things from me, and one of them was the poem from Emily Dickinson. That eventually, that was sold through there, and there's a whole book about that, Poet and the Murderer. So someday when I come back, we can take 3 hours on that one.
Okay. So if you were to describe those 5 months.
That was, he paid for the airfare, went down in one day, came back, brought the money. He gave me $1,000 or something. So that was what I did with him that one day. Mm-hmm. The next day, I didn't do anything with him.
Right. So we talked about yesterday about Lyn Jacobs that at some point Mark probably realized that it was too coincidental for him to always be finding these major documents. And so at least with the Salamander letter, he uses Lyn Jacobs as the front man, but tells Lyn, don't let people know this is coming for me.
That's right.
And so it's Lyn that's corresponding with church headquarters. So that's a role that Lyn played. You talked about a role of carrying cash or like sort of bodyguard. During those 5 months, what types of roles did you play for Mark leading up to the bombings, I guess?
Just like I was saying, I would do a thing, a producer product.
Buy something, sell something.
Oh.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for answering these questions. When the bombing went off, what came to your mind when you heard about the bombings, the day of the bombings? What went through your mind?
Well, the first day, the 15th, I thought had something to do with CFS.
Oh, the business that
with
that
Steve Christensen.
Steve Christensen was involved in.
Gareth Steeds.
You had no idea that it was connected to
Nothing at all.
Mark or Mormon documents or anything.
Yeah. The next day, then the bomb goes off that he is, he blows up in the.
When Kathy died, that was the same day, right?
I'm sorry?
When Kathy, the second bombing?
Yeah, that was the first day.
That was the first day.
Right.
When those two bombs go off.
I just thought it was the CFS.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you suspect Mark at all at that point? Okay.
I believe the same thing everybody else in the whole world believed, the same thing.
Okay. And then the second day, or when the third bomb went off, which was Mark's bomb.
Mark, then I didn't understand why it could have had to do anything to do with Mark. I didn't know why. Would Mark have something wrong? Sorry, having trouble talking here.
No, it's okay. And this is hard stuff. When did you start to wonder whether Mark? When did you start to first wonder whether Mark might have been involved with the bombs?
Took me months.
What led to that wondering?
Material was coming out when, even when he went through his being arrested and going to preliminary. Going to court. Because I went for both of them. His getting a bribe, you know? I don't know if I can keep talking.
Well, one thing that you mentioned yesterday that I don't think people fully understand is kind of the medical condition that your medical situation. I was really sad, for example, when people made fun of your voice, and it turns out there's a medical situation that impacts you. Is this something you're comfortable just resharing now, just so that people understand kind of whatever you want to say about your medical condition?
I don't mind talking about it, but you can see I've got some, with yesterday of going over for 4 hours, it's tiring me bad. But anyway, I have lungs. This part of my gong is taken out, and part of this one, and then the nerve goes from here and goes down up. It was cut off, so this side of my voice doesn't work and never will. So it's just the right side. And I went and had go to a doctor, and they squirted something in there, so it helps a little bit on this side. But my nose will never ever be good, everyone, the rest of my life.
Your voice?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you have part of your lungs removed?
This one.
Yeah.
And this was person.
Right. Is it cancer?
Yes.
Okay.
If you smoke, if you swell carks, smoothing. What's that?
Smoking?
Yes. I got that one. I never smoked.
Yeah.
In my life, in my hard life. And
yeah.
So it's just bad luck at you. Just.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. We'll have to stop. I can't talk.
Okay.
If we can stop, I can try and.
Okay. Yeah.
In 10 minutes to.
Okay. Hey, listeners, we're gonna take a break. I don't know if we'll continue, but we're gonna take a break for now. Thanks for joining us, and we may or may not come back with the final segment with Shannon Flynn. Stay tuned or not. Thanks, everybody. Listeners, we just gave yesterday was 4 hours, and that was probably too much for Shannon, given his kind of just given the stress of the conversation and everything. And so we realized that we need to, if and when we continue talking, it needs to be paced out a little bit better. So what we're going to do for now, I wanted to make sure Shannon was okay. He lied down. We talked about whether he needed medical attention. And what he wanted to do was to just maybe talk for 10 or 15 more minutes today. And then maybe if and when he's feeling well and if and when schedules arise, we'll come back and talk more. And because that would be super fun and meaningful. But for whatever time you have left, maybe I'll ask this. You were actually a suspect first before Mark, as I recall. And I just want to know, like, why do you think, like, why did they do that to you? And then what was that like for you? And I know that you probably to this day maybe have some hard feelings about you being fingered, so to speak, and the way you were treated. So whatever you want to say about that.
Well, of course, I'll do the best I can, here. So when I can't talk anymore, that's just the way it is for right now. But I'll be happy to do it in the future.
Yeah.
To fill on, so we'll just do what I can.
And I just want to be clear. I'm cool with us ending for today, but you said you wanted to go for just a little bit more. But this isn't me, like, I don't want anyone to think that I'm kind of pressuring you to go more, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that the police were quite sure that there were at least 2 or maybe 3 people that were involved with this. And they really went over Mark very fast. I mean, they went this over towards Mark. The ATF really fielded a lot towards Mark. Then they found me, and I think they wanted to find Brent Metcalf or Lyn Jacobs, or they were just in the very starting time to go on somebody. And so with them being able to find that machine gun at my house, they were able to have a, I had to go to jail. And I went in on a Friday.
Because it was illegal to have a machine gun?
I'm sorry?
Because it was illegal to have a machine gun?
Well, they just were going to cause that.
Like associated?
It was just beginning to.
Yeah.
In fact, they picked that up before they ever saw it. But that's how you can be arrested the way they do. And so I went on a Friday night, and then I came out on the Monday afternoon. I found a great attorney, James Newman Barber, who was just fantastic. He died some years ago. He had diabetes really badly. And seeing the movie is the first time I've ever seeing James Barber again. It was amazing to see that. And what I was being charged with was it's actually tax stamp thing. But so it was a federal thing. And that had nothing to do with the bombs. It was just they were
like mail fraud or like
picking as fast as far as they could, and they wanted to have something to go against me. So that was it. So I got out of jail, and I never went to
To trial?
It was eventually taken me away from that. So that took a year for that to happen, but they were using that as to push that against me, because they thought that once they did that, then I was going to tell them something about the bombing. I never had anything to do with it. Never did.
Mm-hmm.
So
How did that feel?
it sucked. I was there on a Friday in the drunk tank.
What does that mean? Oh, where the drunk people are put.
Everybody on a Friday night,
Yeah.
it was so full. I talked to an attorney, Brooks. Sorry, I'm having a hard time.
Oh, it's okay.
But she said, don't talk to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Quit talking to them. You should have said nothing to them.
Mm.
I didn't know any of that stuff. I was 27 years old.
Yeah.
Didn't know what I was doing. I was a Mormon. If you did something wrong, what do? Well, you tell the truth.
Yeah.
And then somebody says, okay, you're going to reduce from what you've done. Sorry, I'm having real problems. And I kind of thought that. Should have said nothing the whole time. But I got out, and I still thought it was something that was going to happen. I spent the night in the drunk tank laying on the floor. And then finally, they took out people to go up on the second and third floors. Of course, there was no way I was going to go out to see a judge or anything. So I was up on the third floor, went in, took the clothes that I had on. I had garments on. And they would take one person at a time. Shannon Flynn, okay, stand up there. Shirt, blue. Here. Undershirt, nothing. Pants, Levi's, whatever it was I had on. Put them on. Everything. Garments. Underwear. Yes or no? You'd be surprised the men that didn't wear underwear. Went through it all, no clothes. Went through like a high fire hose. But some people were being nice to me because I had some paper. One guy said could tell I'd never been in there before. He took it and went it through, held it up so it didn't get wet. I just then called me, 6-10 men with no clothes on. Called you again. White t-shirt, blue pants, plastic shoots, white boxer and in underwear. Got up to the place and had flea powder all over your stuff. Turn around. Then I went upstairs to the third floor. And of course, that was living hell. Because Friday, Saturday, Monday, I was the number one person on the TV news on all stations. And probably Saturday, Sunday, I don't know about Monday because then I left. I was the number one people on the news for the first 10 or 15 minutes. because they were just bigging up anything they could find about me. Me a picture when I was in high school, anything. We heard this. This is why he's being arrested. And of course I sat there and just watched. Well, everybody that was in my little section, they looked at me the whole time. And then I learned how to be in jail because I didn't know how to do any of it. Food would come, red or orange or coffee. And the food, no plastic spoon, 4 pieces of bread, sloppy Joe, some fruit cocktail. That was it. Just came in, and there was a thing that you sat and ate, and then out it went. And then there was 2 tables, and there were 8 people in my section. And then at night, it would come on a light would come on, and then you had to get in on your bed before it stopped. And if you were out, you just had to lay on the floor. I had 1 pillow and a square blanket. And there were some National Geographics to look at it. Because, of course, I watched the news, but then just whatever the stated was, I didn't bother watching because I was just, my whole life was going down the toilet. Yeah. And
were you afraid?
No, everybody was nice to me. One guy was telling me why he was there, a black man, and he had been written some bad checks or something, so he was telling me. Mm-hmm. When I left, then everybody else been left figuring out who it was. Hey, don't sell us any packages. Don't send it to us. That was the Salt Lake City jail.
You weren't afraid that you would be convicted for something? Why? That they would falsely convict you, kind of thing.
No, because that woman, she was a public defender, and she says, don't use me. Use this other guy that has a lot of experience in federal. So I said, okay. I actually talked to him on a telephone on Saturday. And he said, do you want me to be your attorney? Yes. So he came the next day. And it was a barrier. And he came with his secretary, my wife. She met him that day down at the jail. Mm-hmm. And he said, hello, don't worry about your son. I mean, your husband, it'll be okay. But we're going to go in, but I'm going to tell him you're my secretary. And she stood there. And he said, don't worry, because anything you tell me, they can't use it against me. So he said, what about this and what about this? He was there for 30 minutes. He said, tomorrow we'll come for bail. And so I went over with 1 ATF agent with cuffs like this, just 2 of us. When I came back, oh my gosh, there were so many people in the court, completely full. I couldn't understand any of it. At one point he said, say not guilty. Nil night, guilty. I couldn't even hear what was going on because they were talking. Judge, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know what the hell was going on. He figured out a $50,000 recognizance. So I didn't have to come up with any money. Otherwise, I don't know how I would have even gotten out of jail.
What does that mean, recognizance?
What it was is he told them that he will sign a thing that says that if I don't come back, he will owe you $50,000.
Okay.
You don't have to come up with any money.
It's like bail, but you don't have to put any money up.
Mark had to come up with money.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
And so I went over and it was like this. And I said to the gal, I said, can they take this off? She said, Bill or something, come here. Does he have to undo this? And he looked and, no, I don't think so. She said, I can't. So I just, and then when I went down, they put on as much chain and crap as they could, the ATF, and made me look as bad as they could. So in the movie, you saw me, I seem like I'm stupid. I'm not stupid. But I'd spent 20 minutes getting all this crap on there just to make me look bad. They were laughing at me. And so I went in the van, and every reporter, you can't see it, but every reporter, camera, everything were just going crazy. And people were yelling at me, hey, Shannon, and trying to, hey, buddy, hey, all that. And so they said something, and that's why I was kind of, hey, but it was just because something said to me. Mm-hmm. So I went back to the jail, and I didn't have to go up. They gave me my dirty clothes back. One of the jailers said, sorry, dude, I knew you were kind of an orange amongst the oranges here. I said, well, it's just...
An orange among the oranges?
Oh, no, an orange amongst the apples.
Oh, what is that? What do you think?
Well, because I didn't look like the regular.
What do you think he meant by that?
He was just trying to... Oh, well, okay. I'm sorry. Once again, I can't talk too much longer.
No. Let's end with this. As soon as you want to end.
So let me finish with this one. He knew that Lyn Jacobs, well, he said, I went to a thing with Lyn Jacobs.
Mm-hmm. Lyn Jacobs
is part of this. But I went to this thing where Lynn was giving a talk, just maybe a few months before that, because Lynn was there talking about some of his first times he was taking things in. I'm sorry. With Lynn was... What's the right word? He was gay.
Oh, yeah.
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 And this guy was gay, too. That's what he was doing, kind of. I saw him that, and I really liked him. And I could tell you were not the right person in here. I just left. I didn't know what to say. All I want to do is get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And so they just let me out, went up the thing where the cars go, and went around, halfway around. And my wife was at my attorney's office. Of course, then we hugged as well as she could stand after all the time I'd been being in jail. And I talked to Jim Barber, and he said, here, Okay, go home and come back on Tuesday or something, and let's go through this and stuff like that. When I come back, I'll tell about when you take a detector. Sorry, I can't say the right word.
Don't worry about it.
But he made me pay $600 to see if I was...
Oh, the lie detector test?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I can tell you all about that. And I scored very high.
Yeah.
And part of it was for Jim.
Yeah.
Because he needed to know in his old guts whether I really was not or not.
Jim was who?
That was my attorney.
Okay, you did that for him.
Well, of course we paid that.
Yeah.
I mean, I paid that, and he sent that to the police too.
Yeah.
But it was partially from him.
Yeah.
Because he knew that any attorney, you have to work with somebody. And you sometimes have criminals that will tell you, as an attorney, your defense attorney, what you really did. And then you have some that will keep lying to you. Mm-hmm. So at some point, you need to find out which is which.
Yeah.
So I'll come back. I'll try to come back and we can talk.
No, let me just say I really am grateful for you. I really adore you in all the appropriate ways. I'm so glad you came. I'm so sorry that today this stuff happened, but I respect you and I admire you, and I'm really grateful you made the trip. Yesterday in and of itself was just amazing. I'm sad today didn't happen, but your health is literally all that matters. And if I'm at all sad, it's just that I really believe in letting people tell their stories. And I hope I wasn't too aggressive, or I hope I wasn't demeaning or insulting to you in any way. I only, my heart was only in helping give you a chance to like correct the misperceptions and the mean things that people say, and to let you address the hard questions so that people would, to the best, so that reasonable people, not, you can never control the mean people or the people that are just hurt or wanting to hurt others, but for the people who are reasonable and honest so that they could just hear you tell your story. That's what I was trying to do. And I feel bad that maybe I pressed you too hard or stressed you out. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not your fault. It's just the way I am, and the way I'm living right now.
Yeah.
And I'll come back.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to have people send questions to you.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I don't want to put up with the crazy people.
Yeah.
But somebody that really has a good question, when I come back, then you say, hey, this guy said this. And I'll say, sure.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I can.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I can't.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my guess.
Yeah.
And then there'll be parts that I just say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'll bring you back as soon as you feel rested and ready. And you just tell me when. And but mostly, I'm sorry for what happened to you. I'm sorry that you got caught up with such a horrible person. And I'm sorry that, one of the things I want to talk to you about is what your life has been like since then. Because how do you live after this?
Yep.
But we can talk about that later. But I'm sorry that you've had to endure all that. And I imagine it's been really hard. And so I just want you to know you have my love and respect.
Been very nice coming here. Very, very nice. Thank you.